Hello humans, today I wanted to talk about a material known as Detroit agate or fordite. So, Detroit agate and or fordite, I'm probably going to use them interchangeably, is a material that is often found at, well, originally it was found at the Detroit Ford plants, but it's found in all types of automotive or just sort of any type of production or manufacturing place that does powder coating or any type of enamel coating, painting, whatever. And what it's made from is overspray on carts or in powder rooms that gets cooked repeatedly. And over time, this material will actually harden to a very, very stone-like hardness. And it can be worked very, very similarly to a gemstone. So what I have here are some examples of Detroit agate from my workplace. We do a lot of powder coating, we do some wet painting, and all of it needs to get cooked to cure. So we end up with carts that are absolutely covered in this stuff. And as you can see, it actually gets fairly thick on some carts. Like that's probably it's about a centimeter thick. Centimeter thick, great English. But it's about a centimeter thick. And it's made up from hundreds upon hundreds of layers of this paint material that just gets repetitively cooked and cooked and cooked. Now, there are a few things that make Detroit agate fairly interesting. The first one of which actually has to do with its properties. Because it's made of multiple layers of spray, any slight imperfections get multiplied time and time again. As you can see, there's a ring right there in this particular piece. And that's probably caused by somewhere, either back here or somewhere in the middle of this stack, there is almost certainly a small piece of sand from the sandblasting that a piece of material has to go through before it gets painted. And that small piece of sand gets covered in paint, baked, covered in paint, baked, covered in paint, baked over and over again, but each one of those layers slightly increases the size of that bump. And eventually you end up with little circular patterns like that, or even little curls like that one there has. So Detroit agate is often treated as a sort of artificial precious stone would be the best way I have of describing it. It's not trying to replicate anything. It's not like a lab-grown diamond or ruby or sapphire or whatever. But it is man-made, and it is a byproduct of hand painting or hand coating any material. And one of the things that you're going to see with that is, along with, natural imperfections and stuff that I just talked about, different thicknesses. Each layer is going to be a different thickness depending on the material that's getting coated or how this and that. So sometimes you end up with pieces that are mostly, grays and whites, not very much dramatic color. It's cracked on two sides, but you can see it's mostly, grays and whites. And sometimes you end up with very, very thin pieces before they get cracked off like this, or sometimes you end up with, relatively speaking, thick pieces. All different size pieces that can be worked on in different ways. But you also get weirdly shaped pieces. Because this stuff comes mostly off of the carts that things are held on when they get coated, you end up with a lot of these like 90-degree angle pieces or these round pieces, as it was like this was on a piece of pipe. This one here, you can see where it went from flat to curved. That's where it got broken off. This one here as well, curved and then broken off. So it's a weird material to work with and to find pieces for, because the maximum width is only about what like a cart would be. So you're only ever getting like 4-inch, maybe 5-inch flat pieces, which isn't very big. But when you're using it for jewelry making, it is more than large enough. I mean, this piece right here, I'm probably going to try turning into some rings, and I'll probably get 3 or 4 rings out of this relatively small piece, right? Like it fits comfortably in my hand. Even smaller pieces, like this one right here, can be fitted into rings or necklaces or even earrings. You probably saw some examples get put up there if I remembered to edit this. And working this is sort of like working with a brittle stone. It's harder than sandstone, but it's softer than a lot of other stones. Like, I haven't worked with very many stones throughout my time, don't get me wrong, I have worked with, like sandstones. I've worked with a little bit of volcanic glass. I've worked with lots of naturally occurring volcanic stones from northern Canada, which is where I'm from originally. So on the tier list, I'd say it feels like working a fairly soft stone. I mean, I can usually like take a file to it and get a good amount of work done with a file if I need to. But it is still kind of a pain to work with. Like, I'm replacing Dremel bits fairly often. It's absolutely destroying my belt sanders belts, which is about what you'd expect from sort of this kind of soft stone. As you can see, the patterns are relatively random and based on whatever material they come from. And the reason why this is treated like a precious stone, other than just like, it does turn out very, very beautiful as it gets worked, right? Like, you can see the different colors and patterns. And these ones here are fairly plain because where I work, it mostly does industrial manufacturing stuff. But this piece here has a little bit of a pop of color to it. Lighting is bad here. But you can actually see, there's some pinks and some stuff like that. And when you're dealing with true Detroit agate or fordite that's coming from car manufacturers, you get gorgeous, gorgeous colors because those are the colors of cars, right? You get yellows, oranges, blues, vibrant colors. And so that's one of the reasons why Detroit agate is sort of treated like a precious stone when it comes to jewelry making. The other reason is it is limited quantity. So true Detroit agate from Detroit isn't being made anymore. And like motor agate, which is another name for it, from car manufacturers isn't being made anymore because a lot of places have changed the way that they're coloring cars and coloring parts of cars. They've gone to a more electric-based solution. I forget what the actual electric bonding, basically, where there's very, very little there's no overspray in the same way there used to be. There's very, very little of the pigment getting put on the carts, so there's no more being made over time. And that's sort of led to this scarcity of it. There's no more being made. Any more that it comes out is being found in dumps. It's coming from small places like this, where like a piece like this probably took 3-4 years of getting powder coated repeatedly to get made, right? A piece like this, again, probably took a couple of years of just getting repeatedly powder coated to get made. And the fact that it takes a long time because it's not worth producing. Like, it's not a popular enough stone to be worth mass producing it, and that would kind of remove any worth that it has to begin with. But even past that, most places aren't dealing, like, this is a byproduct. It's a frustrating byproduct. It gets in the way of the cart. It's kind of annoying. It chips and cracks. Like this piece right here, you can actually see where the repeated heat cracked it, which led to it kind of sticking off at a weird angle. And it's kind of frustrating when you're moving the carts and stuff like that, having these random sharp edges in places, or even these relatively dull edges in places, just digging into your hands or your gloves. So this is an irritating byproduct. No more of it is being made on purpose. Very few car manufacturers or places that do brightly colored stuff are making it anymore because they've switched to a different process. Smaller places that use powder coating because they're doing smaller runs and it's not worth setting up this electric machine, I can't remember for the life of me what it's called, are doing powder coating, and they're still making it, but it takes a long time to be made. You get weird bumps like this that are a pain to work through, and you don't end up with very much of it to work with. And yeah, Detroit agate, I mean, you work it like a stone. Some places you can still buy it. It's usually sold by weight instead of by size because size gets really weird when you're dealing with objects that are formed around carts, But yeah, I don't really have much more to say about it. I'm going to keep working this stuff. I'm not entirely sure what this guy's going to be. Probably an eye for a statue, forged sculpture. This one here might get turned into a pinky ring for my girlfriend or my mom. I haven't decided yet. This one here, I'm actually pretty excited about it. I'm going to make myself a necklace pendant with all the beautiful colors. I'm going to try and get some rings out of this like I mentioned. But I'm waiting right now for a good piece to come out of work because I want to make some knife handles for it. I think that that'd be pretty cool for a decorative knife. But yeah, this stuff's pretty cool. I wanted to share it. Stay safe and have fun out there. Peace.